Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Today we are going to discuss class 11, chapter number 2, atomic structure. In my last video, I have discussed the energy of an orbit. So now I am going to discuss the difference of energy del E between two orbits. Actually, this topic is at the page 31 of your new book, which is according to the new syllabus. So let me start with, we know that energy of an electron is given by minus Ze square E4 m 8 pi epsilon naught square n square h square. This equation we have already derived it and discussed it in energy of an orbit. Let's say this is an atom. F, this is the nucleus of an atom, and this is the first shell, n is equal to 1. It has energy E1, it's a low energy state or ground state, while this is the n is equal to 2 or with energy E2, it's a high energy state or excited state. So when an electron jumps from low energy state to high energy state, it absorbs energy. It can take energy from heat, light, or it can also be done by the application of high voltage at low pressure. So from any source, when the electron takes energy, it jumps from low energy orbit to high energy orbit by absorbing energy. So when it jumps back to its original ground state, it releases the same energy in form of light. Okay? So now in this topic we will discuss that what is the energy difference, that is the del E between the two orbits or shells or energy levels. Okay? So energy of an orbit is given by this, the del E is given by the difference of energy is indicated by the del E, which is equal to the energy of the high energy state minus low energy state. Always remember this, never write E1 minus E2, but always subtract the low energy from the higher energy. So E2 is the high energy state and E1 is the low energy state. Any orbit which is closer to the nucleus has low energy, while as the distance increases from the nucleus, their energy correspondingly increases. So E1 is low energy state and E2 is the high energy state. So the difference of energy will be E2 minus E1. If we write this equation 1 in terms of E1 and in terms of E2, we will get that E1 is equal to minus Z square E4 m 8 pi n1 square h square. All other are constants, so they are same. Only for E1 I have written n1 square. Okay, n1 is the number of first, it may be the first shell, second shell or third shell, but that is of low energy state. Okay, similarly for E2 I have written minus Z square E4 m 8 epsilon naught square h square. This all is similar to the E1, except here it was n1 square and here it is n2 square. n2 represents the high energy state, that is the excited state. Okay, so in these two equations only n1 and n2 differs, while the rest of all the terms are same and they are constants. Okay, so now putting the values of E1 and E2 in equation 2. So we will get this equation and there was a minus sign, so I have written a minus sign, and energy is already mentioned with the minus sign. So now multiply these two minus signs with each other. So minus and to minus is equal to plus. So the sign changes from minus to plus, and this minus is retained here. Now this is a negative term and this is a positive term, so I rearrange it shift the positive term here and negative term here. So in this way we get this equation z square E4 m8 epsilon naught square n1 square h square minus z e square E4 m8 epsilon naught square n2 square h square. So there is only the difference of n1 square and n2 square in these two equations, while the rest of all the terms are constant and they are identical in both of these two terms. Okay, so taking out z square E4 m8 epsilon naught square h square constant. Okay, the same terms lies here. So taking out the constants is common. So we have taken out these constants is common. So we are only left with from this term only 1 by n1 square is left, and from this term we are left only with the 1 by n2 square. Okay. Now we know that Z is the atomic number, E is the energy of an electron, M is the mass of electron, 8 is constant, epsilon naught it has its own value, which is the permittivity of the free space. This is the Planck's constant, it has its own value. So putting the values of all constants in these instead of these terms, put their values, and by calculation ultimately we will get that Me4 8 epsilon naught square h square. Here z square is not written because for hydrogen z atomic number is 1. So when we write the 1 square we get the same term. So ultimately after calculation we get that value of 2.18 into 10 to the raised power minus 18 joules. As we are discussing about the difference of energy, so the unit here is joules. So put this value here instead of this term. So above equation 3 becomes del E is equal to 2.18 into 10 to the raised power minus 18 joules into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. So dear, always remember this equation. It gives us a difference of energy between the two shells. For example, in numerical, if such a question is given that an electron or jumps from one orbit to another orbit, so how much energy will be released or how much energy will be absorbed. So you can calculate, you can solve such a problems by using this equation. So and you can also in some books instead of this value, which is the 2.18 into 10 to the raised power minus 18, here a constant k is also mentioned. Okay, so if you check the page 32, example 2.5, look at they have mentioned that how much energy is required to make hydrogen atom to jump from n is equal to 2 to n is equal to 4. So when electron jumps from the second orbit to fourth orbit, how much energy will be required? So they have mentioned the same, the difference of energy between the two states, that del E is equal to E final minus E initial. So E final is the high energy state, E initial is the low energy state. So low energy state initial is always N1 and high energy state is always N2. So N2 is 4 here and N1 is 2. So we have the equation for del E is equal to K, and remember that here K is 2.18 into 10 to the raised power minus 18 joule. That is the same value which we derived for the difference of energy between orbits, and you know that this is N1 square and minus N2 square. So N1 is the ground state or low energy state, N2 is the high energy state. We know that N1 here is equal to where here N1 is equal to 2 and N2 is equal to 4. So it is square, so 2 square gives us 4 and 4 square gives us 16. So taking the LCM, and ultimately after calculation that the difference of energy between the second shell and fourth shell is equal to 4.08 into 10 to the raised power minus 18 joules. Okay, so the same is you can have some other values for but the n1 and n2 will be changed, and you have to find out the energy difference between these two. So this equation which I have mentioned, I have marked, is the energy difference between the two states. That is the this equation is very important. So please always remember this equation, remember their values as well as the unit, which is joule. So thank you. So dear, now we are proceeding towards our next topic. This is the derivation of frequency, nu. Nu is the symbol for frequency of the light emitted when electron jumps back from high energy state to low energy state. You know that, for example, this is the nucleus, okay, this is the first shell and this is the second shell. So when electron here is let's say electron is here, it is in low energy state. When this electron absorbs energy from heat, light, or from high voltage, this electron jumps to high energy state. Okay, so when it jumps to high energy state, it takes energy from heat, light, or from high voltage. Okay, so then this electron jumps back to its ground state, that is the original state or low energy state. So while coming back from high energy state to low energy state, it emits the same energy in form of light, electromagnetic radiation. Okay, so for example, you have a piece of iron. When you heat it, ultimately the iron piece becomes red hot. Why it looks red hot? Because iron piece is made up of atoms. Atoms have shells, and in those shells the electrons jumps from the low energy to high energy by absorbing energy from fire which you are giving or from heat which you are giving to this piece of iron. So the same electron then jumps back to its original state from high energy to low energy state. So when it jumps back, it emits the same energy in form of light. So iron emits red light, so that's why it looks red hot. So now we will discuss that what will be the frequency nu of this emitted light when electron jumps back from high energy state to low energy state. So actually the frequency is the frequency of the emitted light which is released by the electron. Okay, so now we know that according to the Planck's quantum theory, that if the difference of energy between any two orbits is great, so this energy difference is proportional to the frequency of emitted light. So if the difference is greater, then the frequency of the emitted light will be also very high. So there is a proportionality between the difference of energy between the two levels and the frequency of the emitted light. So in order to remove the proportionality, we put the Planck's constant, which is just some numerical value. We have discussed it already. So the equation becomes del E is equal to h nu. But in this video, we have also in few minutes ago we have derived this equation, which was equal to the del E is equal to 2.18 into 10 to the power minus 18 joule. This is for the energy difference between the two orbits. So now compare this equation 1 with this equation 2. We know that del E is equal to h nu and del E is equal to this term. So h nu becomes equal to this. So by comparing these two equations, we get h nu is equal to 2.18 into 10 to the power minus 18 joules into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. So actually this value is for the constants which we have done in our previous topic. So as this constant is equal to me4 8 epsilon naught square h square, so we can also write this term instead of these values. So we have written this term here. So instead of this, we have written these constants. Is actually this value was derived from these constants. So we can replace this value by these constants. So by replacing the value by their constants, we get h nu is equal to me4 8 epsilon naught square h square. In order to leave the frequency, we shift this Planck's constant here. So here h square was already present. H square was already. So I'm going to shift this h here. So h square was already here, and when this h comes here in the denominator, they get multiplied, and we get the h cube. Okay. So now the equation for the frequency of the emitted light becomes equal to nu is equal to me4 8 epsilon naught square h cube into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square hertz or cycles per second, which is the unit for the frequency of the emitted light. So dear, this is an equation. If we are given with the values of n1 and n2, we can easily calculate the frequency of the emitted light when electron jumps back from the high energy state to its ground state. Okay, so dear, now I am proceeding to the next topic, which is the derivation of the wave number nu bar. Actually, let me explain what is the wave number. The wave number is the number of waves passing through unit length. For example, if we have 1 centimeter or 1 meter or 1 millimeter length, so what are the number of waves in that length? So that those number of waves will constitute the wave number. Wave number is actually this is directly proportional to the frequency. If frequency is greater or energy is greater, the wave number will be greater. So wave number is the number of waves passing through unit length, maybe 1 meter or maybe 1 centimeter length, and it is usually represented as or it can also be defined as the inverse of wavelength is called wave number. Okay, so wave number is actually the inverse of wavelength. So now let me start with the frequency nu. Frequency is actually inversely related with the wavelength. We know there is inverse relationship between the wavelength and frequency. If greater is the frequency, smaller will be the wavelength and vice versa. So in order to remove this proportionality sign, we have to put equality and a constant. So again here we have put equality sign and a constant, which is c. What is c? C is called the speed of light or velocity of light. It's equal to 3 into 10 to raise power 8 meter per second. Actually, this is the speed of light. So I have put the constant here, and we know the inverse of the wavelength is called wave number. The inverse of wavelength is called wave number. So I put nu bar instead of this. So we get equation 1. But in our previous topic, we have also derived an equation for the frequency of irradiation is nu is equal to z square me4 8 epsilon naught square h cube into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. So I have already derived this equation. So nu is equal to cu nu bar and nu is equal to this. So I can compare equation 1 with 2. So this term becomes equal to this term. So I can write C nu bar is equal to Z square me4 8 epsilon naught square h cube 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. This is equation 3. But as we are deriving an equation for the wave number, so we have to shift this velocity to the other side. So you can see that you can check here that I have transferred this velocity term, which is the speed of light, here. So we get the equation nu bar is equal to z square me for 8 epsilon naught square h cube c into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. As we know that all z is the atomic number, if we put z is equal to 1, okay, so we were left only with me for 8 epsilon naught square h cube c, and we know all these are constants. So now putting the values of all these constants, and z is equal to 1 for hydrogen atom. Z is the atomic number, which is 1 for hydrogen atom. So by calculation we can get that if you put the values of all these constants, and after calculation we get this value, okay, which is equal to 1.09678 and to 10 to the raised power 7 meter inverse. Meter inverse is the unit for wave number. Okay, so the unit for wave number may be meter inverse, centimeter inverse. So, and this numerical value is called Rydberg's constant. It may be one of your short question that what is Rydberg constant and what is its numerical value. So this R is called Rydberg's constant. Okay, so check its spelling and numerical value. Okay, so it must be clear to you. So I can write just R instead of this whole term. Okay, so we will get a new equation. Nu bar is equal to R into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square, and we also know that this Rydberg constant is numerically equal to this. So we can also write nu bar is equal to 1.09678 and to 10 to the raised power 7 meter inverse. You can also write this meter inverse here. Okay, it's up to you whether you write here or here, into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. So if we are given with the low energy state and high energy state, that for example electron is there in n is equal to 2, that is the second shell, and it jumps to n is equal to 4, and when n comes back and it emits some light, so what will be the wave number of that light? So okay, so for that purpose, while dealing with such numericals, you just have to put the values of low energy state and high energy state and take the LCM and multiply the result with this term. You will get the wave number for that numerical. Okay. Dear students, now I am proceeding towards the next topic, which is the defects in Bohr's atomic model. This question is very important. You may have such a question that write any 3 defects in Bohr atomic model. Okay, so when you are dealing with such questions, so you must understand what are the defects associated with Bohr atomic model. Okay, so let me start with this is the topic in your book, that defects in Bohr atomic model. If you are here, open your book and come to the point number 1. They have mentioned that Bohr atomic model is applicable to one electron system and cannot explain the origin of spectral line of multi-electrons or poly-electron system like He, Li, Li and Be, etc. So what this means? Actually, look at here. We know that Bohr atomic model is applicable to hydrogen atom only and hydrogen-like ions. Okay, so why we were discussing like this? Why we have or how I can say this? Let me explain it. We know that while deriving the radius of an orbit or for any calculation, we consider just the nucleus and electron. You know, the nucleus have one proton in which may be represented by a plus sign in hydrogen atom and one electron. So there was a force of attraction between these two. Okay, so we are only considering the force of attraction between one proton and between the nucleus and one electron. So those atoms or ions which have only one electron can be considered here. If there is another electron, so there will be the force of attraction between electron and the nucleus, and similarly the second electron and the nucleus. Okay, but there will be also the force of repulsion between the electron and electron. So this repulsion will change the energy of the whole atom. Okay, and maybe it also may affect the attraction between the nucleus and the electrons. So that's why the Bohr atomic model, there is one of the first defect in the Bohr atomic model, that it cannot be applied to multi-electron system. Multi-electron system means those atoms or ions which have more than one electrons, 2, 3, 4 or many electrons. So Bohr atomic model can never be extended to those atoms or ions which have more than one electrons. For example, helium have 2 electrons, lithium have 3 electrons, and similarly the beryllium have 4 electrons. Okay, so the many electrons may repel each other. Yes, they repel each other. So the repulsions also start, which changes the energy, which increases the energy of the atoms or ions, and this may lead to discrepancy of the force of attraction which we are considering. Okay, so but if we remove the one electron from helium has 2 electrons, if we remove the one electron, so we will get He plus. Yes, now Bohr atomic model is applicable to this. Lithium has total of 3 electrons. If we remove 2 electrons from it, it will be left with 1 electron, so we will get Li plus 2. So Bohr atomic model is also applicable to this ion, and similarly beryllium has total of 4 electrons. If we remove the 3, beryllium will be left with only 1 electron. If we remove the 3, it will develop the charge of plus 3. Now the Bohr atomic model is applicable to hydrogen, and these are called hydrogen-like ions because they have just a single electron. Okay, so it must be noted that Bohr atomic model is only applicable to hydrogen and hydrogen-like ions. Okay, or in other words, you can say that Bohr atomic model is only applicable to uni-electron system. I means those atoms or ions which have just one electrons, not the multi-electron system. Multi-electron system means those atoms or ions which have more than one electrons. Bohr atomic model can never be applied to those. Okay. Now students, if you check the second drawback of or second defect in the Rutherford atomic model, it has been mentioned that when a spectrum of hydrogen gas is seen through a powerful spectrometer, the original lines were replaced by several fine lines. The original lines are divided into other fine lines. Bohr theory cannot explain this fine structure. So this is quite difficult for the students to understand. So I have simplified it. Now look at me. If you take a discharge tube, this is the glass tube which is called discharge tube. We have discussed it in discovery of electron. So if we put the hydrogen gas here, okay, and apply high voltage across the ends, that's a positive terminal, negative terminal, apply high voltage, the electron in hydrogen atom jumps from low energy state to high energy state. Okay, while coming back from the high energy state back to low energy state, they emit light. Okay, so this emitted light, when it was observed through microscope, it was observed, few lines were observed. Okay, these are called spectral lines or spectrum. For example, this may be for K shell, this indicate the L, let's say this indicate the M. But when Bohr was, actually these lines, thick lines were obtained by Bohr, and he said that when electron come back to K shell, Okay, this line is obtained when electron jumps back to L shell. This line is obtained similarly from any other high energy state. When electron jumps back to M shell, we get this line. Okay, so but when these lines were observed through high resolving microscope, it was observed that each line is composed of fine lines. Actually, they said that when these lines were observed by a powerful microscope, it was found that each Bohr line, spectral line, was composed of fine lines. Fines mean very small lines. Okay, so then actually this was not a single line, but it was a cluster of lines. Okay, so Bohr was unable, or Bohr atomic model was unable to explain from where these fine lines come and what they depict, what they show. So there was no explanation in Bohr atomic model to explain the existence of these fine lines. Okay, so this was one of the drawback of the Bohr atomic model, that it cannot explain the existence of fine lines when the Bohr spectral line was observed through the powerful or high resolving microscope. The existence of these fine lines cannot be explained on the basis of Bohr atomic model. So this is actually, these lines these are called spectral lines, or you can call it as a spectrum. Okay, so now we move towards the next. So if you go to the third, the Bohr suggested circular orbits electron around the nucleus of hydrogen atom, but it proves that motion of electron is not in a single plane but takes place in 3 dimensions. Well, let me explain this. For example, this is the nucleus, okay, and electron is revolving around the nucleus. So this is the plane of the paper. Okay, so this electron is only revolving here along with this paper. Okay, this electron can never come here above this or below this paper. This means Bohr said that the motion of electron is unidimensional. The electron revolve only along with one dimension, but it was totally wrong. Later experiments and the discoveries by the scientists proved that electron do not revolve in a single plane. This means orbit is not flat. Electron can revolve here in this plane as well. Electron can also revolve in this plane as well. Okay, so the motion of electron around the nucleus is not unidimensional, but electron can revolve in 3 dimensions in anywhere around the nucleus. So this was another drawback, that if the electron would have to revolve in a single plane, then the atom would be flat, but atom is not flat. Okay, electron actually revolve in 3-dimensional space all around the nucleus at any plane. Okay, so the motion of electron is not a planar motion, it is the multiplanar motion. It can revolve around the nucleus along with any axis. Okay, so now students, we are proceeding towards the next topic, the next not topic but the point of the defects in Rutherford atomic model. We are discussing the 4th point now. Bohr theory cannot explain the effect of magnetic field, Zeeman effect, and electric field, Stark effect on the spectra of atoms. So this Zeeman effect and Stark effect both are explained here. So now let me proceed with let me explain it. Okay, so you know that when hydrogen gas was put in a discharge tube and high voltage was obtained, the hydrogen atoms transition of electron took place and electron jumped to high energy shells. When they came back So they emitted some light. When that light was observed through a spectrometer, spectral lines were obtained. Look at this. Let's say this is a spectral line which is obtained by Bohr. Okay, but later on there was a scientist whose name was Zeeman. Zeeman actually applied a magnetic field. This is the north pole of the magnetic field and south pole over the Bohr spectral line. So under the presence of a powerful magnetic field, this Bohr spectral line split it up, okay, into fine lines. So the splitting up of Bohr spectral line into fine lines was not explained by the Bohr atomic model. This is called Zeeman effect. Z-E-E-M-A-N, Zeeman effect. And he applied magnetic field. He applied magnetic field. So by the application of a strong magnetic field over the Bohr spectral line, the Bohr single spectral line split it up into fine lines, and this was not explained by Bohr atomic model that what these fine lines represents. Actually, students, let me explain it. You know that, for example, this is the M shell. What? M is the third shell. N is equal to 3. If this is the Bohr spectral line for third shell, so you know that the third shell have orbitals or subshells, you can say, you know. So the third shell have 1s, 3p and 5d orbitals. 1s, 3p and 5d. So one orbital is for one fine line for S, 3 lines for P and 5 lines for D. So the presence of these fine lines in a single Bohr spectral line represents that there are not only the shells but the subshells or orbitals, sub-energy levels. So these sub-energy levels were not explained by the Bohr atomic model. So why the splitting occurs? Because the atoms not only have shells but they have orbitals, which are the sub-energy levels. So the fine lines represents the existence of, it proves the existence of sub-energy levels or orbitals. Okay, so these fine lines provides us a clue about the existence of orbitals, which we will discuss it later in our coming topic. What are the orbitals? Orbitals are of various types, S, P, D, F. They have different shapes and orientations. So now let me discuss the Stark effect. Okay, what? Stark effect. Stark effect is nothing. Stark, instead of magnetic field, he applied electric field. For example, this is the positively charged plate, okay, and this is the negatively charged plate. So when he applied the electric field instead of magnetic field, again the splitting takes place. Okay, so the difference between the Zeeman effect and Stark effect is only that Zeeman applied magnetic field while the Stark applied electric field, and the same splitting took place. So both of these effects, which one is called Zeeman effect, other is called the Stark effect, they may be, you can call it is the splitting up of a single Bohr spectral lines into the fine lines by the application of magnetic field is called Zeeman effect. And similarly, the splitting up of the single Bohr spectral lines into the fine lines by the application of electric field is called Stark's effects. So the splitting was same, but the application of magnetic field was done by the Zeeman and application of the electric field was done by the Stark. So both results and both give the same conclusion, that is the splitting up of a single spectral Bohr line into the fine lines, but only the application of fields were different. Okay, so these are called what? Stark effect and Zeeman effect. They may also be one of the short question that what is the Stark effect, what is the Zeeman effect, or what is the difference between these two. So this may be one of your short question. So students, is Stark effect is similarly the Zeeman effect, the existence of multidimensional motion of electron, or applicability of the Bohr atomic model to unelectron system only, and similarly the existence of fine lines by observing through the high resolving microscope. It was concluded that Bohr atomic model has many defects. Okay, so then later on the Bohr atomic model of an atom is not satisfactory, and Bohr atom, the electrons are moving in orbits with specific velocity radii. But according to Heisenberg, but actually a big, you can say, challenge for Bohr atomic model was the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, and according to if the electron revolve, according to the Bohr atomic model, if electron revolve in a single orbit, we will be able to locate its position or momentum at the same time, simultaneously. But the Heisenberg uncertainty principle put a strong reservation or restriction over the motion of electron in an atom, and he said that if we want to locate the position of electron in an atom, then the velocity becomes uncertain. Then you cannot determine its velocity at the same time. Okay, or when you are going to determine the velocity of electron, then you cannot locate its position. This means that if you want to correct one, to specify one, the other will become uncertain. Okay, so by determining the one, you will miss the other, and by determining the second, you will miss the first one. So this is called Heisenberg uncertainty principle. According to this principle, that it is impossible to determine the both position and momentum or velocity of an electron simultaneously. Simultaneously means at the same time. You cannot determine both the position and velocity of electron with the high precision and accuracy. Okay, so this is called Heisenberg uncertainty principle. It can also be one of your it can be said that it can be one of your short question. Okay, but later on, in order to solve this difficulty, Schrödinger gave a wave equation for hydrogen atom. According to him, although the position and velocity of electron cannot be found exactly, so it's impossible to determine both the velocity and you can say the position of electron at the same time, but we can take some area around the nucleus where the electrons can be found. Okay, so the probability of finding electrons can be ascertained. This means we can determine we cannot determine the exact position or velocity, but we can determine the probability. Probability means the chance of finding electron. This can be ascertained. Ascertained means you can specify it, you can determine it. Just the probability, the chance of finding electron, not the exact position or velocity. Okay, and where the electron can be, they have mentioned that the maximum probability at the distance of 0.0529 nanometer. If you take this in the angstrom, you will get the 0.529, and you remember that the same value is for the first orbit of hydrogen atom. If you recall the radius of an orbit, this is the same value. So this means at this distance from the nucleus, we can find an electron, not less or more than this. Okay, So now there is a very small topic. What is spectrum? Students, you would have seen rainbow. So after rain, small water droplets are suspended in air. When the sunlight passes through these suspended water droplets, the sunlight, which is composed of, you can say, 7 colors, which have different, each color has a different wavelength range. So the 7 colors, they split up, okay, and we get a rainbow. So what is the rainbow? Rainbow is a spectrum, okay. So in your book they have shown that the visual display or dispersion of the components of visible light when it is passed through a prism. Actually, the droplets which are suspended in air, they acting as a prism, or if you are in lab, okay, you can pass the ordinary tungsten bulb light through prism. The prism will split the light into various colors. The combination of these various colors, this is called spectrum. So the visual display or the dispersion of the components of visible light when it is passed through prism or through the diffracting medium, we get a spectrum. There are 2 types of spectrum. A type of spectrum in which, let's say, this is the rainbow, okay. So in rainbow we can specify that, let's say, this is the violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, okay. This is called wave gear. It's a series of colors. These are the 7 colors which are present in sunlight, okay. But these colors are merged into each other. You can say they are overlapped with each other. They don't have the sharp boundaries. Such a spectrum in which the spectral lines merge into each other without having a sharp boundary. We can say that red is here, orange is here, yellow color is here, but they are merged together. They are overlapped. Such a spectrum is called continuous spectrum. Continuous spectrum. Actually, continuous spectrum is normally obtained for molecules. It is obtained for molecules, and you know molecules are composed of different atoms. Each atom give its own spectral line, and when different atoms are there, they give different spectral lines, and the different spectral lines merged with each other, they overlapped with each other, they mixes with each other, and hence a continuous spectrum is obtained. So remember that here there are no sharp boundaries between the colors or bands or lines. Spectral lines don't have the sharp boundaries, but they are merged into each other, and normally such type of spectrum is observed for molecules, okay, not for atoms. And similarly, as far as atoms are concerned, each atom gives us a separate line like this, okay. This is for example for one shell, this is for other. So the atoms gives such a spectrum in which the spectral lines have sharp boundaries. For example, this first spectrum line starts here and ends here. Then there is a white background. Again, it starts here. They have sharp boundaries. We can separate it. Okay. Such a spectrum in which the boundaries between the spectral lines are marked. Such a spectrum is called line spectrum. Okay. This is called what? Line spectrum. And remember that atoms gives us line spectrum. Okay, so line spectrum is obtained normally for atoms, and they may be dark and white lines if the light used, whatever we have used, is invisible. For example, UV light or infrared light. And if we use the visible light, then these lines, spectral lines, will be colored, because visible light is you can say it's visible to human eye, so we will get different colors here instead of dark and white lines. But the other types of light, for example the UV light or infrared light, they gives us the dark and white lines, not the colored lines. Okay, colored lines are only obtained for visible when we use the visible light, for example the sunlight, for example the tungsten bulb light. Okay, so for that we will get the colored lines, and if the lines are separated, marked, and they have marked boundaries, they have they have sharp boundaries, and they are separated from each other, such a spectrum is called line spectrum. And line spectrum is the characteristic feature of each atom. And for example, in atomic absorption or in atomic emission, spectrometers are used to check these spectra. Okay, so spectra, the rainbow is a natural spectrum. Okay, and but we have the devices or instrument what we call spectrometers or spectrophotometers. These are used to check the spectrum. Okay, so dear students, this was something about the explanation about the defects and then various other topics. Inshallah, see you later. Okay, thank you all.